Hello, welcome back. This is episode 58. Thank you so much for being here. In this episode, I want to help you to understand why perhaps you aren't getting the level of engagement that you want on your content. So let's say you are being visible, or maybe you're in that sort of lull of disillusionment that the algorithm is not on your side, that you tried your best with content and it just wasn't landing with the right people, or all you were getting was comments and likes from other people who do the same thing that you do, which is so aggravating. And it just didn't seem to be landing. And so you gave up. So wherever you are, whether you are actively showing up as an expert and not getting engagement, or you are in that disillusionment and that state of lack of visibility because of that frustration and disillusionment, then this episode is going to be for you. What I want you to understand first and foremost about engaging with your target audience, and this builds a little on the last episode where I spoke about the fact that the majority of people who find you for the first time as a practitioner, as an expert, are not yet aware that they have the problems that you can solve and are therefore what we would call cold traffic, cold leads, cold prospects. I want you to understand what these terms really mean, because that means you will become an empowered business owner. So most people that find you are what we call cold leads, and that means they don't know who you are. And most importantly, when we think about your content and what type of content really resonates and really garners attention and engagement in 2023 and beyond, is the type of content that speaks to somebody who doesn't yet know that they have the problem that you can solve. So I want you to understand in this episode a little bit more about the type of thinking that you need to do, the type of deep thinking and reflection and maybe research and analysis of your ideal client that needs to take place in order for you to start creating content that works, that is received, that actually grabs the attention and garners the engagement that you so desire it to. When you can nail this, you will stop feeling disappointed that all the effort that you are putting into your content or the information that you're putting out there, beautiful recipes or tips and tricks, you will feel less of that disappointment that the effort is not translating into results. Now, the reason that people don't buy from you comes down typically to one thing, and that is messaging. The way that you are communicating what you do is not translating into the mind of the person who you want to buy that service from you. Messaging, communication, clarity of what it is that you do. And not just of what you do, but why you do it and the impact that that is going to have on that person's life. You need to get good at communicating what that transformation is that you provide. Now, there's an exceptional marketing expert who is rocking the internet right now. He's a guy called Alex Hormozi. And this is something that I picked up from Alex from his book, which is called $100 Million Offer. Okay, it's a really good book that helps you to understand how to create value in the offers that you put out into the world. Okay, so I'll park that there for you as a potential read for you after this episode. But Alex talks about how important it is for you to understand that your client or your potential client is less interested in the features of your product or your service and more interested in the benefits that it will bring to you. And most people think that marketing is about communicating what's included in the package. Okay, so for you as a service provider, that will be things like, X number of sessions or X number of time of those sessions or X number of resources that come with the program or the price. The features are me helping you to achieve X through this particular logistical arrangement. Okay, it's this sort of logistics or admin of your service. The benefits, on the other hand, are what I referred to before as the transformation that's going to take place. How doing that work, how engaging in that process with you is actually going to change that person's life. So when you think about your content and why it is not engaging an audience, why it is not receiving the attention that you want it to from the people who you know need to see it, it's not because what you have to share is not valuable. And that's when we start to sort of take things personally and we get into this cycle of self-doubt of I don't have value to add, I'm not good enough, I need to go and do another qualification. And that's a dangerous rabbit hole to go down because it's not one that is going to help you to move forward. So instead of thinking that it's because you don't have value to share, I want you to start thinking about how you can get better at communicating the value that you have to offer. And the first step, the first layer of that content, of that information that you're going to provide to your audience is content that helps your audience or your ideal client connect with the problems or symptoms that they are experiencing. So for the most part, the reason that your content, and you can go back and reflect over the last 3 things that you posted, is not helping your ideal client to see that they have the problem that you can solve. So let's say, for example, you shared a recipe and that recipe was a delicious, nourishing salad. Firstly, your ideal client is probably someone who considers themselves to be too busy to make salad, not sure on what all of those ingredients were that you talked about. What's tahini, and I don't know even where to get asparagus, or, and I'm sort of jesting, but it's true, it's about identifying the barriers that are getting in the way of them actually consuming that beautiful, valuable recipe that you've created and shared with them. So I don't have time to do that. I probably won't like it, or I won't enjoy it, or I don't know how to adapt it so that I can enjoy it. I don't know why I would need to eat that versus what I'm already eating. I don't know that I have the symptoms that salad or that recipe is going to be useful for resolving. So can you see where that recipe almost fits 4 or 5 steps down the line in terms of relevance to where most of your audience are right now? So what would be more interesting is not to not share the recipe, but to preface that recipe with some interesting insights into what sort of symptoms your client might be experiencing, how quick it is to make this type of salad or recipe, how easy it is to access the ingredients for this recipe, and how it will make you feel if those symptoms that you talked about before are the symptoms that you're experiencing. The most powerful way to understand what type of content is going to be useful for you as a wellness expert or a health practitioner to share really is to actually ask yourself a series of questions. And the first question is, what does my ideal client need to know and understand about themselves that they currently don't know or understand about themselves? So what are the symptoms that they might be experiencing that they consider to be normal, or that they didn't even know were symptoms of something? What are the frustrations that my client experiences that stops them from identifying with these symptoms, from identifying that they have a problem, or from taking action to fix it? So examples of answers to that question will be, they are time poor, they don't know that they have the problem that I can solve, and so I need to help them to identify those symptoms within themselves. Like, what are 5 symptoms that you might be experiencing if you have anxiety or IBS or whatever it is, type 2 diabetes, or are on the verge of a breakdown or burnout in a corporate job? What are those symptoms that you need to help your client identify with that type of content is going to be far more useful than content that assumes that your client already knows that they need this thing. So, I use the recipe as an example because that feels like a really valuable piece of content. But if I don't know that that is relevant to me, or that it's going to help me, or how it's going to help me, then it becomes completely irrelevant. It just becomes noise for me as your potential ideal client. So asking yourself that question, what do I need to help my ideal client to understand that they don't already know about themselves or understand about themselves? The second thing, which is an extension of this, is in what context or in what specific situations might my ideal client be experiencing these challenges or these symptoms or these problems? And the cool thing about asking this question is we start to get to the heart of the real scenarios in which your ideal client is struggling. Is it when they're with their children? Is it when they're with their partner? Is it when they are alone? Is it when they look in the mirror? Is it when they are on their way to work? Is it when they are with friends or in social situations? And when we start to analyze the lives of our ideal client and ask ourselves how those symptoms that they're experiencing come to life, and we can tell those stories, share those examples, ask those questions, prompt that thinking through our content, that is when we bridge the gap between somebody who doesn't yet identify themselves as having the problem that you have and somebody who feels deeply heard and deeply understood. So those two questions alone could be for you an afternoon of deep thinking, of reflection, of taking notes, of asking questions of people you know or that you think might be experiencing the problem that you solve, and starting to think about the content that you're putting out into the world from that perspective. So if your content is not getting engagement, then start with those two questions. Start with the answers from those two questions, and there you will have the substance and the content to start formulating into content that engages, that gets attention, and that starts conversation, and that more importantly attracts the person who is ultimately going to be the person who pays you for your service, as opposed to, other people doing the same work as you, or who already understand the things that you understand, or who already are on the path to solving the problem that you solve. I hope that that has been helpful, and I look forward to having you join me again for the next episode of The Profitable Wellness Expert. See you soon.